shut down public radio, that would have been the last straw for me. You'd take my money and my freedom, but free radio makes the world go round. Hoi, and welcome to the Neo-Anarchist Podcast, brand spanking new from the most reliably biased source on the Matrix, the Shadowcasters network. Less Drek, more truth. What has two thumbs, hates corporations, and goes by the handle Opti? This guy. Today on the NAV, things just don't explode like they used to. A neo-anarchist look at 2005 to 2009. This has been sticking in my craw for a while, chummers. In 2005, President Bester continued the same fragging policies as Martin Hunt. He shut down funding for public broadcasting and gave their assets to private corps. Now, no one is saying that public radio is perfect or unbiased, but if all of your info comes from people whose bottom line is to get paid, you aren't going to hear the news. You're going to hear what they want you to hear so that you spend more money with them. Scanning me, little crows? And that is why we exist. Just Opti, his legion of little crows, the Shadowcasters network, and my humble but beautiful baby, the Neo-Anarchist Vidcast. Continuing the creation and education of neo-anarchists everywhere, we continue to dive into the historical records of old. In August 2005, a 5.8 earthquake hit Manhattan. In some places, a 5.8 might not be a big deal, but believe me, it's a fragging big deal when virtually every skyscraper but the Empire State Building comes down, killing hundreds of thousands. As a direct result of this event, the stock exchange moves from New York to Boston, putting them back on the map. Now, let's skip across the sea a little bit, all right? In Asia, events are beginning to swirl that eventually cause a tsunami of change. In the fall, South Korean president was assassinated. His replacement, General Kyung Han-yoon, declares war on the North, with the shaky reasoning that he thinks that the assassin was communist. For right or wrong, Japan supports the South and the Second Korean War begins. About 6 months later, Japan further stretches its fingers into the world pie by launching a bunch of satellites that collect solar power and then beam it back to Earth. This allows them to get power to previously power-starved regions and facilitates a virtual takeover of the developing world. That makes them wealthy and powerful and influential. How influential? I'm glad you asked. Take this anecdote for example. So there's this company in Texas called Texas Instruments, electronics, hardware, software, etc. It sues Miroyama Electric for stealing their intellectual property. Eventually, Texas Instruments wins, and what does Miroyama do? The whole fragging company, from CEO to the mailroom guys, all kill themselves. Okay, that's a bit crude. They commit seppuku, ritual suicide, so that they restore their honor and don't pass it on to their kin. Crazy, right? Well, that's just it. Nobody thought so. The news didn't make much of it, Japan just accepted it, and everyone moved on like they did the right thing. And this attitude of the corp is bigger than you, so don't bring dishonor on the corp, became standard operating procedure. Thanks to this corrupted version of the Japanese honor system, the corps have been replacing family, religion, and nation as the most important thing in people's lives, and no one noticed. Thanks, chummers. Just after this, in November, North Korea gets pissed at Japan for siding with the South, so they launch nukes at Japan. The warheads fail to detonate, and Japan goes medieval on them, crushing North Korea, winning the war for the South, and feeling so triumphant from their victories ahead that they renamed themselves the Japanese Imperial State. Now, shift your mind's eye to the Americas, south of the US border. In 2007, the three biggest drug cartels, which have been causing no end of trouble due to feuding, all of a sudden stop fighting each other and start taking steps to become more legit. Sound fishy? Well, someone's got the big idea that the three big cartels could one day form a family called Oro Corporation. See where this is going? In March of 2008, Oro discovers huge deposits of molybdenum, that's like lead, all right, used in super awesome alloys, off the coast of Panama. It got the rights to mine it as well as a monopoly on extracting, processing, and exporting. Somehow, they were able to secure all of this before actually discovering it. Cha-ching! One more thing down south. The next year, a bunch of South American countries begin to pull out of international copyright, trademark, and intellectual property agreements. Instant legal piracy. And guess who takes the lead? Oro. They stand enthroned as the gods of techno-piracy. Now, here's where the dreck gets real. Remember SAME, the Sovereign American Indian Movement? Well, they didn't fade away. See, this oil company called United Oil Industries secured the rights to exploit the petrol underneath 10% of the remaining Amerindian land. SAME had had enough. They went to war and captured a missile silo that the Air Force had in northwest Montana. They went on to threaten to launch nuclear missiles if the feds didn't return all the land that was taken from them. The US pretended to play along, talking as much as they needed to, and in the meantime, they deployed anti-terrorist squads to deal with them. The same was crushed, but along the way, someone accidentally launched a Lone Eagle ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missile, at Russia, which is why the folks call it the Lone Eagle incident. And here's the sticky wicket. The missile never hit. Sound familiar? 2 nukes launched in as many years, and 2 nukes never exploded. No one knows why, Chummer, and believe me, we tried to figure it out. In France, the nuclear weirdness continues, where a nuclear reactor goes critical and sends a huge cloud of radioactivity throughout France and Germany. 35,000 die on the spot, and 135,000 eventually bite it as a result. Now, there's something definitely fragged up with all of this, and I can't scan it yet, but a direct load of nuclear power plants having all these problems and blowing up, while the nukes that people are trying to send to blow up the people on purpose just don't work? That ain't chance, even if I believed in such a thing. Still, I've been to the ruins in France. Well, not my body anyway. All right, enough of the cryptic crap. I'm a shaman, Raven shaman to be exact, little crows. I've been in the astral, broken, shattered, twisted shadows of people, and the kids still shaking and crying and burning. I'll never go back there, period. Brag the money. Back in Texas, United Oil Industries is having more problems. A bunch of unemployed, homeless, and disenfranchised folks busted into United Oil headquarters and demanded that they be shut down for causing all of Dallas's financial problems. The Texas governor called in the Texas Ranger assault teams, and afterwards, the government gave corporations the right to do whatever the direct they pleased in dealing with the armed intruders. This meant hiring locals or building a small standing armory, so be it. Looking to definitively respond to the Lone Eagle incident and to make it easier to steal the land in the future, the US and Canada both passed similar laws, rounding up uppity Native Americans, or people with any ties to same, and putting them in internment camps and acquiring their territories. Grim tidings indeed, oh my. Here's a few parting shots from 2005 and 2006. Europe goes to war. Seems like Poland hadn't been attacked for a while, and Belarus wanted to fix that. So the border war started. In July of 2006, Australian scientists successfully cloned an extinct Tasmanian tiger. Yay! Was Mother Nature trying to teach us something? Had we pushed indigenous people too far? Were we all much too in love with Japanese culture? For answers to these and many other pressing questions, tune in next time to the Neo-Anarchist Podcast. You have now wasted another 10 perfectly good minutes of time communing with the Shadowcasters network. This was the Neo-Anarchist Podcast, and this Raven Shaman at the helm has been Opti. Enjoy your freedom! I shall have to kill you in the morning. Well, since this is the 4th episode and you're still hanging around after the good stuff has already been discharged, I'm going to stop trying to convince you not to stay. This part, the few minutes at the end, is going to be self-promotion, Patreon stuff, and usually my heartfelt goodbyes. But who knows what might end up here. But it won't be 6th world history. In closing, I want to give a handsome load of thanks to our Patreon supporters for making the vidcast possible. I've been seeing some of our wearable stuff make it out into the wild. That's pretty darn cool, chummers. You can also stop by the Shadowrun Community Network Discord server and hang out, chat, etc. The illustrious audio illumination was written by the venerable Marshall Parker and reimagined masterfully by Unanimity88. And the graphic design that frames my farcical face is by Taryn Davis and Errantry Designs. Now, I'm going to do some self-promotion here, which I don't love, but let me say this. There are lots of people who have worked on this project besides me, and they deserve to be known and celebrated. I have a group of folks that I hang around with called Fragging Unicorns, and we have a Kickstarter coming up on February 21st, just 10 short days from now. That Kickstarter is for a game called Subversion, which is an RPG about community and rebellion in a cyberpunk fantasy world called Neo-Babylon. It shares some aesthetics with Shadowrun, but the world, the gameplay mechanics, the things the PCs do, and the themes are all very different. I'd be pleased as punch if you gave us a follow right now on our Kickstarter pre-launch page, and if you backed our project in 10 days' time, I would be your best friend. You can never have enough of those. If you want to support the ongoing process of making the show, head to patreon.com/Neo-Anarchist Podcast and throw some money at us so we can continue to throw our best, our lives, our love at you. Pick up a hat or a shirt or a sticker while you're at it. It really means a lot, friends. That's it for today, little crows. You are the absolute best.